Welcome back, listeners, to another transformative episode of BizBlend, where business meets heart, leadership meets legacy, and every conversation brings a new lens to growth. I'm your host, Sana, as always, and today's episode is one for the books. Well, today's guest brings a rare blend of grit, resilience, brilliance, and grounded wisdom. Listeners, she's a retired US Navy captain, a combat veteran, a PhD in engineering, and a bridge builder in every sense of the word, from war zones to boardrooms. Listeners, meet our esteemed guest, Dr. Jen Donahue. She has led teams of 4 to 1800 designed nuclear power plants to survive earthquakes. And yes, drilled and blasted through ice in Alaska in the middle of winter. But what really resonates with me, and I think will with you too as well, is how she has turned fear, imposter syndrome, and extreme environments into the foundation for unity, trust, and personal growth. So, with that, Dr. Jen, welcome to the show, and I am extremely honored to have you with us.
Well, thank you very much. I am so honored to even be on your podcast. I'm really looking forward to it. This is going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, absolutely. Wow, I mean, that's such a mind-blowing journey, Dr. Chen. I often say that leadership isn't about having all the answers. It's about asking better questions and building cultures of trust, empathy, and curiosity. And you have built quite literal and figurative bridges under fire. So, and that's exactly leadership in motion. So let's start with your journey. I mean, you have led teams in some of the world's most high pressure environments. What have those experiences taught you about building trust quickly, and how can leaders apply that in everyday team dynamics?
But absolutely. I don't believe that you can actually succeed unless you have the trust of your team. And when you are in extreme environments, I was in Alaska in the wintertime with a team, I was in Iraq and Afghanistan. And unless you have trust between you and your team, they trust you and you trust them explicitly, you're not going to get the job done. Uh, it's you have to get through the mission, and that's the way that I always look through it. But you have to do it as a team.
Mm-hmm.
I always look at trust as leaders. We have to trust first. We have to show it in order to have it earned in return. And so, as leaders, our very first step out the door has got to be showing trust to our team. And a lot of times that's really, really scary because that means that you're having to let go.
Yeah.
A lot of times leaders just want to hold on to everything because, heaven forbid that the wheels fall off the bus and the mission starts to go sideways. How will that reflect on you? But what you have to do is you have to let go because you have these people that are working for you and they know their job and they want to do their job to the best of their abilities. That's why we have to let go as leaders and trust them to do what they know how to do. And if you show that trust, a lot of times they're even more excited about doing their job because they realize, hey, you know what? She has our back. I'm going to be able to do my job the best that it's ever been done. And that's what I think it really comes down to is that if we're able to just get out there and show that trust first, people feed off that and they get excited about it. They have autonomy and they can go out and do the right things.
I completely agree with that. And leadership it starts with what's exactly how the leader sees their team or themselves, and I guess self-awareness comes into that picture, and you mentioned self-awareness as one of your three pillars. So in a society that sometimes values confidence over humility, how do you coach leaders to embrace vulnerability without losing authority?
Ooh, that's a really good one. I actually just wrote a blog post on this a couple days ago.
Oh.
How do we be vulnerable and show authority? I think it's really in how you see yourself. And a lot of times as leaders, people look to us to lead them. And so just even little things like just stand up straight, look people in the eye. Just those tiny little things show that you are authoritative, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you're combative or anything like that. But then you can lead through empathy.
Mm.
Let your actions show that you are empathetic and let them show that you can be vulnerable. But at the same time, people will recognize if you just have a little bit of confidence that you are the leader. I've gone through this several times and it's sort of a fine line. I am a woman. I was in a very male dominated situation. There's only 9% women. Everywhere I went, I was typically the only female officer. But at the same time, I might have been in charge of between 14 and almost 400 men. And so if you at least put on the air of authority, and I'll explain what that means because I don't want it to sound false or disingenuous.
Mhm.
Show that it's like, what, I am here to lead you. And you have that confidence and you stand up straight and you believe in yourself. People
Mhm.
don't see that. But like I said, it's your actions. And I'm a big believer in understanding all of my people and what they bring to the table. And I'll be honest with them and say, I really don't understand what you do. Can you please explain it to me? And so there you're showing vulnerability, but you're also showing interest in your people. They get excited. They're like, oh, I get to tell the boss what's going on. But just by being honest with people, that's a great way to show that you are vulnerable because we don't have all the answers. And if you're a leader that thinks that they do, well, there's probably a lot that you don't know, and it might come around to basically bite you in the end. But be interested in your people. Tell them what you don't know, ask them to explain it back to you. That's
Mhm.
one of the best ways that you can also build trust at the same time.
Absolutely. That's really, really inspiring. And Dr. Jen, I mean, yeah, you mentioned that, some of the highly male dominated areas you have worked. I mean, being it navy or military or engineering, we it's kind of a stereotypical association of that we picture men in these roles. So can you give any examples where you actually applied this? I mean, I guess that will really give a clear picture to all of our listeners how to apply that.
Sure. One of the ways that I figured this out is when I went to Alaska, and it was my very first time leading. I was
Okay.
in charge of 14 guys. We were on a tiny little island. I
Okay.
was a very, very young officer, and I had looked at all the other officers around me, the ones that were higher ranking, and they were all yellers. And so what they would do is they would basically yell at you to make you do what they wanted you to do. And
Yep.
so I thought, "Oh, that's how you lead." And so I thought, "Oh, well, that's okay. I don't feel comfortable with that." But so yeah, I just started like yelling out orders to all these 14 guys that I'm stationed on an island with for like 6 months. And it just didn't feel comfortable. And yes, I was the leader. I was in charge of them, and so I was trying to be this leader that I thought I was supposed to be. And finally, my senior enlisted, he's sort of like your shadow almost. He kind of pulled me aside and he looked at me and he's like, "This isn't you." And I was kind of taken aback by that. I was like, "What do you mean?" It's like, "I'm the leader. I'm supposed to be doing this." And he's like, "This isn't you." He's like, "I can see it in you." He's like, "I can tell that you're not a yeller. You don't enjoy yelling at people. I can tell that you really want to just talk to them." And I was like, yep, yeah, actually, I do." So he said, "Why don't you start to try that?" And so I kind of put away the yelling personality for a little while, and I just started to try to get to know each one of the team members that I was out there with. They knew that I was in charge, because every morning, like, this is what we're gonna do. I laid out the day, and everybody respected that. I was like, they knew that I was going to steer them in the right direction. They knew that I wasn't going to try to go behind their back. They knew that I was in charge. But at the same time, I started to get to know each one of those 14 guys that I was out on the island with, and I'm still in touch with them because I wanted to get to know them. I wanted to understand what their job was as a driller, as a mechanic, as an equipment operator. I wanted to know how I could help them be the best that they could be. Like, did they need more tools? Did they need some more training? What did they need in order to be successful? And once they understood that also, that I was leading and trying to make them successful, oh man, that's when it all came together. People, they were so excited. Like every day they were getting up, they're like, these are our goals. Hey, and we were outperforming any other team that was on that island at the time. And it's because I was able to connect with them and get them excited about what they do and help them succeed. Cause that's also what we do as leaders. It's not about us. It's about our personnel and making sure that they have everything that they can in order to be the most successful that they can.
Wow, wow. That's such a great example. It beautifully teaches the principles of leadership. And when you mentioned about shared purpose, especially in Western culture, individualism is celebrated per se. So, how do you help teams align around a shared mission without diluting what makes each member unique?
Ooh, I love this piece. I
Mm.
call it the unity paradox.
Okay.
And what happens is that we know that as an organization, in order to be successful, everybody has to be pulling in the right direction. We all have to go forward or left or right or whatever it is, but everybody has to be going towards that same purpose. And the best way to do that is to have a vision. This is where we want to go. And we have to make sure that we pass that vision down through the entire organization. But we also know that, especially in Western culture, we all like to be recognized for our individualism. We like to be seen. We want to be heard. We want to be recognized for our own individual accomplishments. So, how do you create unity out of individualism? And the best way to do that is really getting to know your personnel and working with them to figure out how they fit into that vision. I like to say, if we're all going to go forward, you express this to everybody else. Make sure that everybody in the entire chain of command knows this is the direction that we're going in. And it doesn't matter if you're the CEO, it doesn't matter if you're a department head, maybe you're just a team lead, but you all have a vision that you all want to move forward with. Express this vision, express why it's important, express what would happen if we did this. But
Mhm.
then ask each individual how they fit into that vision. Don't just go around and say, hey, you're going to do this and you're going to do that. No, 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 no. What you do is you ask them how they fit into the vision. That way they start to think about it and they start to think about what they're good at, what they can do, and then they own it. They have a piece of it. And so now they're bought in on the vision because they know how they fit into the vision with their own talents and they can start to move forward in that direction. I've seen so many different corporations and organizations come out and say, this is our vision. This is what you're going to do. And everybody just kind of shrugs their shoulders and says, okay, I guess that's what we're doing. No, make sure that each individual knows and understands how they fit in and how they can contribute. That's how you do it.
Mm. Wow, that makes such a great sense. And let's say when we are motivating individually each and every team member and identifying their gift and helping them identify their strength and weakness and how exactly they fit into that vision. uh, there's a quite huge high chances of having conflicts as well. Maybe person A will have a different idea and person B will have a different idea to achieve a particular target. So in such situations of conflict, how exactly do you suggest to resolve that? Because I think conflict resolution is one of the most the trickiest and the most difficult situations to deal with as a people manager or a leader.
It really is. Well, I'll tell you what you don't do is you don't ignore it. I've seen a lot of people ignore conflict and hope that it just works itself out. And a lot of times, sometimes it does. Maybe 15% of the time it does. The rest of the time, it just feels like it just festers. It can get between people. It's almost like a cancer that starts to eat
Mhm.
through the entire team. It can start affecting the rest of the team because people start taking sides. I mean, it just
Yeah.
really gets ugly. So I would say anytime you have a conflict, even if it's a small one, address it head on. And this is one of those things that's just a lot of people, me included, that I just feel very uncomfortable with. I don't like conflict just the way that I was raised. I don't like conflict. But I also realize that conflict resolution is so important. So if you can bring both people in and have a very adult discussion about how we can resolve it, that's probably best. If you have to take one person individually because of whatever the situation might be, start to find the common ground between the two. There's gotta be some kind of common ground, and maybe it's a situation where you can actually have them work together on certain pieces of it. Think about a Venn diagram where you might have 2 people, but they have some type of overlapping task that they have to do. Maybe that's a solution, but please don't avoid it. That's the worst thing that you can do, and even if it is hard, and if it is outside your comfort zone, take a deep breath and just do it. Because you know what? In the end, it's going to be better. It's going to be better than if you just let it go. I'm a big fan of just, like I said, bringing both people, whether it's in a conference room or whatever it is, and just lining
Mhm.
out all the issues and problems and finding where different people can really hone in on one section. And maybe I've actually seen this also. Maybe he has somebody take the lead and somebody who basically helps them in some way, so that they both have a part of the same system. So there's a lot of different ways that you can do conflict management, but I would just say that as a leader, please don't overlook them and just hope that it goes away.
Definitely, definitely. Such a great advice. Wow. And also, Dr. Jen, imposter syndrome, it often comes into the picture, especially for leaders or entrepreneurs or founders. But when we talk about women in leadership, I think it holds much more importance to address it, acknowledge it, and help each other how to navigate through this. And you have faced that in war zones and boardrooms alike. So, how do we identify when our inner critic is sabotaging team outcomes? And how exactly do we reframe it into something which is empowering?
I've really had imposter syndrome for probably about maybe the last 10 to 12 years of my life. For the first part of my life, I was this crazy rogue. I'm going to do it. I don't care what anybody else tells me. so But then I had a situation where my confidence was absolutely shattered, and once that happened, then that's really when imposter syndrome really started to creep up on my entire life,
Mhm.
and because of that, I had to figure out how do I get back to that confident, brash person that I used to be? Not that I need to be obnoxious about it, but at the same time, how do I stop this, I call it my mean little voice. It's that one that's always in the back of your head telling you, "You're not good enough. You don't belong here. You
Mhm.
should just quit before everybody finds out you're a fraud." That was the dialogue that was going on in my head when I was having all these different situations, some of them very critical, some of them mundane, but that imposter syndrome really started to sink in. And I talked to a couple of different people who were dealing with imposter syndrome themselves. And what I
Mhm.
found was the most positive thing that I could do is I would go over to my printer, I would grab a clean piece of paper, and I would start to write down all of my different accolades, everything that I'd ever done. I mean, it goes back to winning second place in the fourth grade science fair. And I would
Wow.
write down all of these things. And then I was really starting to realize, hey, wait a minute. I actually have done some incredible things. Why is this hanging up? And as an engineer, I'm all about trying to get to the root cause of why there's a failure. So then I started to look at this list. And the more I looked at it, I was like, okay, maybe I can do this. But then I took it a step further, and this is what I tell all of my clients. When you write down those accolades, draw a line right down the middle of the paper, and then on the other side, write down how. How did you do these things? Those are our inherent strengths that a lot of times we dismiss when imposter syndrome comes up, telling us we're not good enough, we're not worthy, and all these things. Because as you start to look at all of your accolades, you realize, hey, you know what? You might be stronger than what you really felt like, or maybe you're smarter that you want to give yourself credit for. And you start to write down, like, these are my strengths. And all of a sudden, and I'm a big believer also in science. And so when you start to read things that you've written yourself, your
Mhm.
brain starts to rewire itself also.
Mm.
And it's incredible what you can do. So as you are reading what you have written, it's recoding your brain to realize, hey, maybe you can do whatever this is. And you don't have to listen to this mean little voice in the back of your head because you have proved it yourself just by writing things on paper that you can do what you set out to do.
Well, that's such an interesting insight. I mean, I guess forget about technology, forget about your laptops or your phones on iPads or anything. I think, just take a pen and a, white paper and just write it down. That gives so much motivation. I mean, scientifically, emotionally, soulfully. I think, as you mentioned about, reading what I have written it maybe a long time back, I think it definitely rewires our minds. That is such a brilliant insight, Dr. Jen.
Thank you. I've done a lot of scientific research on this. I really
Oh,
have. And actually, I just finished writing a book on this about how we can rewire our brains
oh,
so that
wow.
we can get over our imposter syndrome, our fear of failure, or our fear of success.
Mhm.
I've just done tons of research into this that it is possible to rewire your brain so that you can get over these feelings of inadequacy and self-doubt so much quicker so that you can react quicker so that you can be better for yourself and for your team whenever you show up.
Mm, brilliant, brilliant. And also, you have reinvented yourself across fields and phases. For for, for entrepreneurs or executives, professionals who are stuck at a crossroad, what's your advice for finding that alignment again? I mean, within yourself and your team or with your work?
I would say that if you find yourself at a crossroad, again, this is going back to my engineering brain, really think about all, it's going to probably sounds lame. Think about all the pros and cons. And here's what I would say, don't be afraid to try something. You always have the ability later to pivot. I was in the United States Navy. I was on active duty. I did construction for a while. I went back to school. I got recalled to the military several times. I started a company. My husband actually jokes that I can't hold down a job. Now, that's not exactly true, but at the same time, don't be afraid to pivot.
Mm.
Find what you love. Oh, life is so short. Go find what you love. And you know what? If you were at a crossroads and you're not happy with the direction that you're going, do not be afraid to pivot. Pivot and try something new. Just continually search for that thing that, you know what, it'll make your life meaningful. So many people I know they're just trudging along. They don't know what to do. They're afraid to act. And I would say just stop and just recollect yourself. Really look at the world and figure out what do you love and go try that. Just go try it for a while and see if it's something that is right for you. Don't go your entire life and be miserable. Go find what you love.
That is such a beautiful piece of message. That is so, so inspiring. And to take to look at things from a different perspective, Dr. Jen, you have built cohesive units under fire, but some people would argue that high performance can happen without deep trust, especially in transactional teams. So, do you believe that trust is always a non negotiable in team success? I mean, or are there any exceptions?
There probably are exceptions. There's exceptions to everything.
Mhm.
Everything that I have tried, though, needs trust. It it's who I am, it's something that I believe in deeply, and it's something that has made me successful. But at the same time, I believe in helping other people, and so through that trust, I've been able to help other people as well. I've been able to help them find their own way. I've been able to help them get promoted. I've been able to help them do what they wanna do. And so I really feel like, yeah, not everybody needs it. That is true, and if you don't want it, then you don't have to. But for me, this is what's helped make me successful and make other people successful. So I would say that this is one of my top priorities in life.
That makes sense. Makes sense. Okay, great. So, Dr. Jen, if our listeners would like to connect with you and, share their experiences or, seek more of your wisdom from you, then how they can do that?
Uh, it's really easy. You could go to my website, which is just Jen Donahue with 2 N's. Actually, technically 3, I guess, if you count my last name, but JENNDONAHUE. You can also find me on LinkedIn at Jen Donahue. I would love to hear your own stories. I'm always inspired by other people and the stories that they have. So please reach out. I would love to hear from you. I would love to find, how, you've dealt with trust and other issues and your imposter syndrome and self doubt and find out how you've overcome them. I would love to hear what other people have to say.
Lovely, lovely. I'll make sure, Dr. Jen, to have all the links in the show notes. And I totally agree with you. Everyone has their unique journey, their unique self, unique set of strengths and weaknesses, and unique wisdom to share. So, thank you so much. I mean, this conversation was beyond inspiring, and thank you for showing us that true leadership isn't forged in ease. It's in the willingness to grow through discomfort, doubt, and difference. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Oh, it's been such a joy talking to you today.
And to all of my listeners out there, if you are navigating your own leadership battles or trying to figure out how to unify your team around a bold mission, replay this one. And remember that growth isn't about becoming someone else, it's about becoming more of who you already are. And until next time, this is your host, Sana, and this is BizBlend, where we blend vision with voice. Until next time, keep building.